storage closet in our first office space. I literally moved out the file cabinets and things that were in there, and I had just enough room to set up a table, which I could sort of kind of move around. And that's where I developed the Aromatouch, because I wanted some privacy. My guinea pigs were good friends, people like Justin Harrison, which many of you know, our first wellness advocate in doTERRA. I said, I need your help. And he would come in, and I would try different things, and he would give me feedback. That feels horrible. That did nothing. You don't know what you're doing. All the good things that a friend would commonly say. And I did that for months and months and months. I also had to go through the process of, if I know what it is that I need to accomplish, then how do I best accomplish that? And I went through that process by first deciding, and I know we talk a lot about systemic constants, and I will tell you, since we're talking so privately today, I actually don't like the name systemic constants. I've never liked that name and how that represents what we're doing, because I think it's inadequate. However, it is the perfect descriptor of what we're doing. And where this came from in this process of the Aromatouch, it came from this idea that all of my patients, in all of my years in patient care, my patients always came to me generally with one of or multiples of 4 different things. It might express differently, it might not express in the way that you typically would think, but it was still an issue of stress, or an issue of immunity, or an issue of inflammation. For example, if somebody came to me with arthritic type conditions, that's inflammation. But in my practice, I'd also look at, well, what is the driver of that process? Where is that really coming from? Here's the outward symptomatology. And over time, I began to make this association between stress as one of the levers that gets pulled, that all of my patients were stressed in one way or another. Just daily living is somewhat stressful now, isn't it? And by the way, stress is a really interesting thing, and here's why it's a common denominator in everything that we do with the Aromatouch. Stress to your body is exactly the same no matter what it is. If I were to come to you and say, you know what, you just look like such a nice person, my wife and I talked about it. I don't have this to give you, by the way, but we're going to give you $1 million, and we don't care what you do with it, and here you go. Go enjoy it, and I hope it blesses your life, and we're going to give you $1 million too. We just think you deserve it, and we want you to have it. And if we had that, maybe we would, but we don't. So anyway, there you go. That's no different than if I came to you and I said, I'm so sorry. I have the worst news I could ever give to you. Your spouse has passed away unexpectedly, or whatever it might be. Your experience of complete joy and all of those emotions, and your experience of complete and total grief, outwardly would manifest very, very differently. But inwardly is the exact same process. There's no difference in that cascade to the body. Stress is just stress. And so we might think to ourselves, well, I really don't have stress, but you do, and the key is it long-term stress or is it episodic? It comes and it goes periodically, which sometimes has some health benefits associated with that. That's not always a bad thing. It's like so many things that we deal with our health where it becomes chronic. And so I had decided that stress is an important part of what needs to be addressed with the Aromatouch. And then it was an easy jump to say immunity also has to be addressed, because one of the things that happens when we have chronic stress is we have reduced immune capability. And reduced immune capability speaks for itself. We are also exposed to things that go beyond our immune capability, even when it is functioning optimally. Even when that's happening, we don't always have the immune capability when it's at its peak that will sufficiently manage some of the things that we're now exposed to. in the form of toxicity and microbes and many other things that happen within the body on a regular basis. And so that was an issue that had to be dealt with. And inflammation. There's a lot of debate when we start talking about inflammation, but my patients all came to me with various stages of chronic inflammation, which, by the way, I am going to talk about today from main stage for a little bit on how we might address some of those things. Inflammation destroys tissues. That's what it always does. It will degrade and destroy tissue. You think about somebody who has long-term arthritic type conditions and the loss that they have of synovial tissue and the gnarled fingers and the pain and all of the other things that tend to happen because of that. Cancer is an inflammatory disease. Diabetes is an inflammatory disease. And these are the things that my patients were coming to me for all of the time. I was in a unique circumstance in my private practice in that I was in a smaller community. And even though those things weren't my specialty, people came to me for resolve. Part of my interest in essential oils grew out of, at least in part, that I didn't feel like I had adequate answers for my patients, and it bothered me. I didn't feel like I had the answer to be able to tell you, here's where your solution can be found. And when we discovered and became involved with essential oils, it changed my whole perspective. This is also why the Aromatouch and the essential oils used within it is so critical. I literally took all of the oils that I could think of that would fit into or in some way might manage some of those categories that we're talking about with poor health. And I divided them into these categories, and I began trying multiples of combinations. So when Justin or others would come in, I'd say, here's the oils I'm going to use today. I'd like to know how you feel about, and I'd give them a scenario. And I chose the individuals I was working with because in some ways they were manifesting some of the issues that I had described here. And it became very effective for me over time to narrow this down to 8 specific essential oils. Now, of note with the Aromatouch, one of the things that's very unique is that I have never changed the technique since the day I started the technique. It has never changed.
Thank you.
That's for 2 reasons, is that one, there was a real process that I went through that was a clinical process. Looking at the chemistry, looking at human physiology, looking at outcomes. Even though at the time I didn't have ways that I could do a human clinical trial, which we've now done on the Aromatouch, and it does exactly what we said that it does, which I'm very pleased about. But we've known that all along because of our own experience. You, either yourself or others. Now, the last stage of this was homeostasis. And homeostasis is an interesting thing to talk about. It's a little bit in medicine and healthcare, it's one of those voodoo kind of words. Yeah, okay, and let's light some candles and hold hands, right? I mean, we don't know how to describe this. You don't go to school and say, well, we're going to learn about homeostasis today. That's not what you learn. You learn about disease process. You learn about chain reactions. You learn about pharmacology. You learn about physiology. You learn about all of these different things. But never did I participate in all of my discussions and in all of my education in anything that had anything to do with homeostasis. Homeostasis I typically describe as a physiological process as it applies to your autonomic nervous system. Those of you who have learned the Aromatouch have learned about sympathetic and parasympathetic activity. I do that every time. Every time I teach, I do that. Because you just felt sympathetic response. It was instant. You're welcome. Your heart's beating, you're alive, you're awake, you're welcome. But this is also the problem that we have. And parasympathetic is, and hopefully you'll calm down and everything. Well, I won't do that to you again, but I might be lying. You'll see. hopefully you'll calm down and everything will be fine and you go into what's called parasympathetic response. The common belief is that you're either sympathetic or you're parasympathetic. Parasympathetic is I'm at rest, I'm at ease. My body is able to react and respond. Sympathetic is fight or flight. My body's under stress. I'm in protection mode, or whatever it happens to be. We've all been in those circumstances where clearly we felt completely at ease and we felt completely uncomfortable, and maybe in the dynamic of fight or flight. Those are the opposite extremes. And I've always described it that parasympathetic is associated with rest, and sympathetic is associated with fight or flight. And it's easy to believe that you're one or the other, but that's not what we're trying to achieve. That's really not what homeostasis is. I continue to talk about it in that context because when I first developed the Aromatouch, one of the things that I was nervous about, fearful of even, I'll be honest, is the amount of critique I was going to come under. I was already called a quack because I was using essential oils. And now I've got this weird technique where you apply the essential oils. And I felt like I had to have some markers in place that would allow me to say, no, this is physiologically sound. This is medicinally sound. This is meaningful and valuable. Not too long after I launched the Aromatouch, I was in my office working one day, and a gentleman just walked in who I did not know, sat down in front of me, and he goes, "What's all this Aromatouch nonsense?" And I said, my name's Dr. Hill, who are you? And I don't remember his name, I should. I've got his signature, but I don't remember his name. Can't read his signature, he's a doctor. And he introduced himself, and he was a neurophysiologist, I believe was his correct title. And he said, my daughter has gotten involved with doTERRA, which is one issue. And the other issue is she somehow seems to think that you're brilliant because you created some kind of a crazy technique to use those weird things. That's exactly what he said. And I said, well, I don't know if I know your daughter. And he goes, well, I don't think she's ever met you. She just follows you like you're some kind of a gray cat. And I'm like, well, maybe I am. I mean, how do you respond to something like that? And it didn't matter what I said, no matter how much I tried to lighten the mood, he was upset and angry. And he said, well, there's no basis for any of this. You and I both know it. We're just making something up. And at the time, I had just taught 1 or 2 classes in the Aromatouch publicly. And his daughter apparently had come to one of those 2 classes. It was down in St. George, which is where I think she came, which was the second time, which is not too far from where we live, the second time I ever taught the Aromatouch. And he said, well, you're going to prove it to me. But I still had on my desk all of the research and things I was still had gone through. And it was very much, my office was very much Aroma Central at that point. And I said, well, there's a lot of research here. I mean, let's talk about this. Because he was bringing up some points. I said, yeah, that's all right here. And he got to the point where he said, okay, that may be. Okay, so it's not just something that you just kind of recklessly created, fine. But it doesn't work, I can promise you that. And he goes, and tomorrow I'm going to come back here, and you're going to give an Aromatouch to my wife. And we'll just see if it works or not. I remember thinking to myself, I'm calling in sick tomorrow. I am not coming in. But I said, okay, fine, that would be great. I mean, either the Aromatouch works or it doesn't work. Here's a person, I found out later that he actually had worked on a team that had won the Nobel Prize looking at neuroscience and how the brain functions, and in particular the cascade of how the brain functions in response to different things. And so he came in the next morning on my drive into the office. I was, as you can imagine, a little bit tentative. I don't know who this person is. How do I get myself into these problems all the time? And on the way in, I thought to myself, I'm not going to give his wife an Aromatouch. I'm going to give him one. And if he doesn't want to do that, then I'll just politely say, well, then I can't help you. And so he came in, and his wife was there, and she was a very kind person, and I said, I'm so sorry, I won't be able to help you today. I'm going to give you an Aromatouch and let you experience what this is. And it was so funny because his wife said, see, I told you so. So he got on the table, and I started doing the Aromatouch, and immediately, of course, you can imagine, what are you doing that for? And I finally just said, how about I just do the Aromatouch? And how about I be really honest with you? I don't have all the answers on the Aromatouch. I just know that I created something that's powerful and that is effective and that will benefit you. I have some of the answers because I went through a real process to develop this. I based it on my knowledge. If your knowledge exceeds mine, I would love to know your thoughts. But right now, maybe let's just try to do this and then we can talk afterwards. And so I gave him the Aromatouch, which, as is typical, he fell asleep. But as I was going through the Aromatouch, occasionally he'd just say, that's interesting. There was a point where I wanted to just take my elbow and jam it right into his back. It was really frustrating. And we got all done, and he sat up on the table, and he goes, do you have some time that we can talk? And I said, I do. I should have probably put a picture in there. This is why I have his signature. We went to my office, and he said, you really have no idea what you just created, do you? And I said, I have an idea. What I don't know is why it does what it does. I don't know that in its entirety. Even after all of these years with the Aromatouch, I don't have all of the answers to the Aromatouch. There is something that, for lack of a better word, lack of a better description, is somewhat magical about the essential oils. Meaning that as predictable as they are with their chemistry, well, I know that it has this, and I know it has this, and I know that this is how these work together. And gosh, we do know pathway. Dr. Bell can tell you all about pathways. We know pathways right now, and we know all of these different things. And so absolutely, I definitely know how this is working. But then all of a sudden we have an experience where none of that matters and none of that matches up, and something miraculous or something unexpected happens, and that's why we love oils. That's also the reason why we love the Aromatouch. It's also the reason why after all of these years I've not changed the oils that we use. I've not changed the Aromatouch and how we do it. Because it's not necessary. He spent the next couple of hours, he said, okay, when you did this, here's what happened. And he drew this schematic of the brain. And he talked about all of this neurochemical response that in his mind he deduced he experienced. At the end of which, I made him sign the paper. I go, would you mind signing that? And I took a picture of it, which I sometimes show. I said, thank you for coming in, and thank you for helping me understand a little bit more. Truthfully, I didn't understand anything you were saying. I was just like, wow, I knew it. I knew that was the case. What a remarkable moment that was for me to feel validated. What I've learned since then is that I really don't care about those moments. Not that it has no meaning for me. It was. He congratulated me and he thanked me for creating the Aromatouch. He told me I'm going to have my daughter teach this to me so I can do it on my wife and she can do it on me. When I say I don't care about those things, I don't, because the objective was not for accolades. The objective was not so that somebody could say, wow, you're brilliant. The objective was so that exactly what happened could happen. He had this opportunity now to do something that previously he had no connection to. He had no way to even catalog it for the value that it could have. But then he had an experience that told him, I want to learn this. I want to use this. I can help my family, and they can help me. The Aromatouch is about how we give service to other people. The Aromatouch is about how we have opportunity to reach outside of ourselves, where we are in that moment, in all of our inadequacy. How many of you feel like you are an essential oil expert? I'd really like you to raise your hands. Great, wonderful. I'm not raising mine. We do feel like we have confidence in what we know, and I do too. But I wake up every day, and the first thought that comes into my mind, or one of the first thoughts, is just how much I yet don't know. It's one of the things that continues to drive us in doTERRA. It's one of the reasons why we have the inquisition that we have for research and for science, for discovery, for doing things that have not been done before, for understanding things that nobody has had opportunity before, for not being afraid to step out on the edge and say, I'm going to do something I've never done before. And the Aromatouch is one of the tools that you and I have where we can do that in a way that we have never had opportunity before. There's really some interesting research that I keyed into very, very early on when I was contemplating and thinking about the Aromatouch. And it's research that talks about acts of service. I actually found two interesting types of research. One type of research I found was, do you know that we really become who we associate with? And I have some evidence of this. They took individuals and they looked at this in two different categories. One category was the types of pets that people have. And they had lots of things where they showed and demonstrated that pet owners and their pets end up looking largely the same. Okay, well, sure. People look refined, people look unrefined. There's bulldogs and there's poodles, so I guess that makes some sense. That makes some great sense. But then they talked about it in the human context, that we become largely who we associate with. One of the reasons why we talk about culture in doTERRA, about who we are, and why we find meaning and value in reaching outside of ourselves. And how many of us are here, as evidence of this, are here because somebody introduced us to the essential oils. Somebody did something for us to help us with something that we didn't know we needed or could do or didn't have any answers for. Almost every hand goes up. That is part of the culture of doTERRA. And so when I read through that research, that was valuable to me. I also remember thinking in my mind, I hope I end up looking more like my wife and she ends up not looking like me as we spend time together. And you've noticed that too. Couples end up looking very, very similar in their demeanor, in their expressions. We adopt into those things. I hope you feel like I do, that we are in good company in doTERRA. We are good people doing good things. On the very first slide I showed you, it said Aromatouch, people helping people. There was a time where that said the Aromatouch technique, a clinical approach to essential oil application, because I wanted people to have some confidence in what they were learning, that it wasn't just something that was abstract, that there really was a great purpose behind its development. How long have I been talking for? Does anybody know? We only have 4 minutes left. Wow. Sorry, Christian, we're not going to get to where we thought we would get to. The other part of that research was they took a group of individuals who all themselves had different types of health conditions and circumstances. And they provided for them opportunities to give service to other people. Just nothing more, nothing less, simple acts of service. And what they noted was two very important things. One is that as they conducted these acts of service, they had opportunity for their health to improve. The giver of the service had opportunity for their health to improve. The other thing that they noticed, the other thing that they found was, if they gave service to somebody they did not know, somebody who they were not previously familiar with, that the amount of improvement they had in their own health was markedly higher, substantially improved. I think that's a part of our human nature, our psyche, our physiology, that we need and we want to be able to have opportunity to help other people. Remember the three things that we talked about. We all want to know that we matter. We want to know that we're making a difference somewhere. We want to know that we belong somewhere. That's inherent no matter where we are in the world, no matter where we live. The Aromatouch, over decades now, has fulfilled this opportunity for people to get outside of themselves and help. Now, I have a belief with the Aromatouch that the Aromatouch is more than just what we've described here today. I don't ever talk about the business in doTERRA. It's not because I don't know the business of doTERRA. I have to know the business of doTERRA. I have responsibilities for the business of doTERRA. But I don't talk about it because I don't care about it. I know that sounds crazy. I don't care about it because I have trusted partners. We have trusted employees. We have people who can make sure that those things are happening the way that they are. The only thing that I have ever thought in the business sense is that for me, the Aromatouch also represents, better than any other way that I can give somebody an essential oil experience that I know is powerful, that I know is safe, that I know is going to create positive change and outcome for them, regardless of their circumstance. That it's okay if I don't have all the answers for them and can't tell them all the chemistry and all the physiology. I want you to feel comfortable that that's okay. It doesn't matter. Now, I'm committed to the Aromatouch. Somebody came to me the other day, and we've had some recent changes in our office and in the Aromatouch, and somebody came to me and said, "What are you going to do?" I know you all know, and I don't want to bring a melancholy kind of an environment here, but I will miss Jordan Riggs, who, after more than 4 years, lost her battle with cancer. I've been quiet about her passing. Because to my wife and I, it's deeply personal. And we don't share it publicly. I would like to acknowledge her passing. Now, that having been said, the Aromatouch is going to live on. The Aromatouch will live beyond me. The Aromatouch has value in everything that we're doing in regards to the essential oils. My challenge to you, and we'll give you more information on this, we're creating a whole new framework around the Aromatouch. And we're not changing the technique, and we're not changing the oils, but I feel the need to give people more opportunity to talk more freely and more openly about the Aromatouch. I offer my congratulations to you because you do that better than anybody in the entire world, including in the United States. And I'm deeply indebted to you. In my time here that we've been visiting with you, a number of people have come up and expressed their love for the Aromatouch. They've expressed their love for the opportunity that it's represented for them, and they've expressed their love for what it's represented in terms of them overcoming and having changes in their life. I thank you because none of that has anything to do with me. I'm not here, and you are. If you don't know the Aromatouch, please learn it. If you know the Aromatouch and you're not using it, please use it. I met a woman one time who said, I'm so proud of myself. I've been to every training you've ever done on the Aromatouch. And I said, you must really love it. And she goes, oh, I don't know. I've never given one other than in the trainings. It doesn't help us if we don't use it. If you're using the Aromatouch, I encourage you to use it more. I love the Aromatouch. I love doTERRA. I love doTERRA. More important to me is I love my faith and I love my family. And I'm forever grateful for them for standing by me. Thank you for letting me be with you today.